Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of a bit of a news flash update in the world of the Focus Mark 1 community. And this time there has been something going around on Facebook, social media, the news, general car news that has actually got people talking. And it is an article done by Autocar, which basically they asked for freedom of information request from presumably the DVLA or the DFT 1 or 2 to find out which cars were the most scrapped cars between January and October 2023. And the results were rather interesting. We had usual cars, Ford Fiestas, Vauxhall Astras, Golfs and Polos, and basically every single one of the most common cars that were sold. If there were more sold, there'll be more scrapped. It's just a balance of economy. That's the way it works. But the number one car, very obviously, was the Ford Focus. And that information has been sprawling around on the Facebook groups. I've seen it on all the Mark 1 groups, all the Ford groups. And it's like, oh my goodness me, Mark 1s are going out and they're very rare now and all this. The truth is about that article is there was a picture of the Ford Heritage Fleet member. I believe this is the car in Aquafrost. That is a very famous Mark 1. It's probably the earliest one to known in existence in the UK, and it is part of Ford's Heritage Fleet. And because that was the picture used on the actual news article, people assumed that over 42,639 Mark 1s have been scrapped. No, absolutely not. My information is that in a period of 12 months, in the last 12 months, my data suggests that around 22,000, maybe up to 24,000 Mark 1s, closer to 24,000 I should say, Mark 1s have been scrapped in the last 12 months. So that 42,639, it's generically Focus Mark 2s, or 1s, 2s, 3s, and maybe a few 4s in there because, well, they're not built as well, are they? And I can imagine some have gone to scrap, but very few at the moment. But I would say predominantly 2s and 3s are becoming a bit more common now. And Mark 1s will become very much the least scrapped out of all those Focus models, given another 12 months. Mainly because if 42,639 Focuses were scrapped in the last, well, January to October, that means that the population of Focuses has decreased by 65 to 70% in 10 months. That's not right, and it doesn't add up. The figures never add up. But what it has got people talking about, whether that misconception was a complete accident, probably is that many people are giving many positive thoughts about the Focus Mark 1. In fact, I think there are many people who were not previously thinking of maybe owning a Mark 1 again are actually considering doing so, because this has alarmed people to the point where, oh my God, they're actually vanishing. I might need to get one. And that generically is car enthusiasts who will say that. People who would want a second car as a project car. And my attitude is go and buy one if you want one. Because the ship has not sailed quite yet, and you don't want to be one of those people who bought the ticket too late and the ship has left the harbour. That's a pretty poor metaphor, but it's pretty much true. At the moment, the Mark 1 ship has not sailed. Prices are very low, relatively, but they are going up. And if you want one, you need to get on the bandwagon, because the good ones are being snapped up and kept by people, and these people are not letting them go, like mine. Mine's never going. It will stay with me, and that tends to be the community that the Mark 1 endears. I also believe quite strongly with the Mark 1, it's one of very few cars in the world that has, I think, a soul. And when I mean soul, I mean a car that can and has been highly modified, personalised to everyone's taste. There is a humongous amount of bits and pieces that you can get and buy for Mark 1 to upgrade it, to subtly modify it or heavily modify it. Whether I like that or not, that is not my decision, because I am not the owner of many of these cars. But I do believe that with any car with a soul, it's very upsetting when you actually send one of those cars to the scrapyard. And I've seen a number of Mark 1s being crushed before my eyes, and it's very, very upsetting, particularly when you have such a deep connection with that particular car. I don't believe there are many cars like that. I really don't. The other point being, and this is a serious point, the conception that people have that most, well, 42,000 Mark 1s have come off the road, which has been corrected, and hopefully people will see this and know better. Most people probably have worked it out. But ideally, there's quite a few focuses that haven't really reached, well, mainly the Mark 1 hasn't reached the public perception of, oh, it's a classic, it needs to be looked after, it's a modern classic, because most people still seem to feel that Mark 1 is just too common to be taken to a car show. I get this all the time, and I think other members have had this all the time, where people make a comment towards a particular Mark 1 at a car show or car meet saying, I could have gone to Asda supermarket and seen one of these. And I think that's a really poor, underhanded comment, and it's unfortunately a very common one. And that sort of comment, unfortunately, is very indicative of, well, almost a byproduct of the Focus Mark 1's longevity in service, because they're long lived. There are very few problems with them still today, even though apart from rust is getting to most of them, they're still functioning and they're still managing to pass MOTs just about. More coming off the road and more will. But the longevity of the car is ridiculous. I don't know any car that after 20, 25 years of being in production, in service, why would there be so many left on the roads? I don't even think old minis, were that abundant in the 1980s when that car was 25 years old. So I think the Focus Mark 1 stands above pretty much every other car for having so many versions in service. A testament to the car's supreme high quality and design work. But unfortunately, the consequence is the perception is that the Mark 1 is just still an old banger because there's just so many of them left. I only had to look out the window this morning for about half an hour while doing something else, and I've seen two Mark 1s pass my house. That's ridiculous. I haven't seen many recently, but I've seen two in one morning. Absolutely crazy. So it's got people talking, this article, and I'm really glad. And I hope that it has a positive effect on the way people see Mark 1s and the way people treat Mark 1s, and maybe people who are thinking of jumping on the ship but haven't quite bought the ticket. But in that case, you need to buy one very quickly. And I keep saying that. I said it 6 months ago. I said it about 12 months ago. And I'm going to say it for 2024. But most of them, most of the good ones, I reckon, would have been snapped up in the next 12 months. That's not me trying to inflate prices or create a situation that doesn't exist. It is factual. This is what's happening within the groups. This is where the prices are going, and no doubt I will do a video to back my arguments up. And well, it will be very interesting. But overall, most people, even people who are not really into Fords, most of them will say, great car. You know, I did have one for a bit. It was a really good car. I enjoyed my ownership of it. I didn't like X, Y, and Z, a few things about it, but it drove like it was on rails. I've never driven a car like that since. And I think when you have comments like that, it's really positive. It's only but positive. And I think there's a lot of love for the Mark 1. I don't believe there are many Ford cars, I should say, in general, that have a massive following. Ford Capris have a massive following. Ford Cortinas, Granadas, these have massive owners clubs, a massive amount of members, and massive amounts of love. I don't believe that Fiesta Mark 3s receive that sort of love, unfortunately. Fiesta Mark, I honestly think Fiesta Mark 1, 2, 3s and 4s, and, you know, I'm not being funny, all the classic Fiestas, I don't believe the owners' communities are very strong at all from what I've experienced. And that is my concern of owning that car long term, is that most of them are being messed about with, modified, and generally people don't care a damn about the ones that haven't been messed about with, which is a crying shame. And that is why I've gone about my mission to make sure that Mark 1s are not overly modified, and that there is a place for people who just enjoy their Mark 1 Focus as it came out the factory, as it was intended to be. Because if I didn't start this voice, then other people wouldn't know who to follow. And that's the point. Generally, it started out with a blog 2 years ago, and now what's ended up with is a small group of people who are part of the Mark 1 preservation group, club, community, and we all believe in preserving these cars as they are, and looking after them as they are, and respecting each other. And as much as I have anti-modification attitudes, I have to respect other people's choices and their wishes for their car. It's not my car. But I think there is a nice little place now for people who can enjoy their Mark 1s in a niche group, and it will not be niche for too much longer. Considering the amount of love for this car, it's only going to expand and get bigger. So I'm going to leave this with you, but as far as I'm very aware, there is a big YouTuber who has done a review on a Mark 1 Focus. That is going to be very interesting. It is coming out very soon, and I'll be watching, and you'll be watching too. But for now, Mark 1 community people, take care.